there it is. Can everybody see both Geo and I?
Yeah.
Yes, excellent. All right. So when we decided that we were going to go forward with CUNY Emerging Leaders Conference this year, a lot of folks had ideas about what we would talk about. When the committee came together and started to discuss some of the issues that were prevalent in our time, I could only come up with one person who really could cover it in a succinct way. And that was my good friend, Geo Derice. He's an extraordinary individual, a humble human being, a generous person, always giving of his time, always willing to take and make the extra effort to help people out and to provide support. And it's really my pleasure to have him here today to participate and be our keynote speaker for the 2021 CUNY Emerging Leaders Conference. And so if we can get a virtual version round of applause for my good friend, Geo Derice.
Oh, thank you, Jason.
Happy birthday, Geo.
What up? Thank you for the birthday wishes. Thank you. I'm 37. I feel old now. I feel old. Let me just make sure. Thank you, Tiana. I appreciate you. Let me just make sure I can share my screen before we jump right in here. I can see this. Let's see. Let's go here. Let me just get a 1 in the chat if you can see my screen. Let me get a 1 in the chat. Let me try to pull up the chat too. That's important. Hold on a second, people. Chat, I want to see what you guys have to say as well. I see ones. Okay. Perfect. Let me minimize this window right here. We'll get this show on the road. Okay. Perfect. Again, I'm super excited to be here with you guys. I got a chance. I really do miss not being with you in person. I actually did not participate in this amazing conference last year, but I still crashed the event, right? I crashed the event, went to different sessions, got to go and see my homie Christina running the show behind the scenes and things like that. And I'm super excited. I'm glad that you guys have made the decision to participate in something like this, even though it's like bright and sunny, right? Like I'm looking at the sun right now and it's like giving me a sun kiss. And it's like, Geo, you sure you don't want to be out here? And I'm like, no, I got my friends from CUNY that I got to talk to. So you're going to have to wait for a little bit. But I'm super excited. And I got a chance to pop in also to a lot of the different sessions and heard some really good stuff, right? I took notes. So for those of you who saw me in there and was like, hey, Giovanni, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So amazing sessions earlier. We talked about the 6 dimensions of wellness, right? And talked about the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, social, vocational, and spiritual, right? Like if anyone has ever said, hey, tell me how you feel. Now we understand why it's a complicated question, right? Because there's like 6 different parts of our health that we need to go ahead and address. So that was an awesome session. Then we had the inner workings of self-love, where I got like tripped up with the original question because it was like inner workings. And I realized I'm so into everyone else's workings that when it comes to mine, I'm like, I don't know. So that was a great session as well. And then we had improving your communication in your social groups, right? In the groups that you are running, the organizations, and talked about the different channels, right? We had the channel-based versus the strategy-based. So that was super cool. We had the leadership skills. Make sure you join Malave, okay? Develop those skills so that you can get you paid and be able to make an impact as leaders. We had movement with Amanda. I'm gonna be honest, I saw Inti killing it on the dance floor with the moves. When it came to that rotating part though, that's where I messed up. So just FYI, Geo got 2 left feet, so he really doesn't dance. And then we had financial literacy, where we learned about interest and how we don't necessarily want to go and pay more money than what we originally paid, right? So you want to go and get that water bottle for $1. You don't want to end up paying $2 for it. So it's super cool to be able to be on here with you guys and see the sessions. And then we got another great thing later on. But the reason why we're here today and why I'm so excited about this presentation called Self-ish is because it's the one presentation where the subject matter is you. the subject matter of this presentation is you. We cannot do this presentation without you being a part of it. And that's why I'm super excited to go and share with you guys this whole idea about self-ish. Now, typically we hear the word self-care, right? And we're in the middle of a pandemic. And when you ask people about like, how are you doing right now? How are you handling Zoom, virtual settings? Like, what's your stress levels like? And so I just wanted to see in the chat real quick, if you guys can just share with me, like if you was to go and say on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, I'm not stressed at all, 10 being, I got a master's degree in stress. What level are you at? I'm seeing 10. Someone wrote 15. Someone sent a massage therapist and everything that way. I see 2, 8, 9, 10. Shamaya says 20. Oh my gosh, Shamaya, what? I'm gonna have to send you my music playlist and some candles and everything. Lamaya says the virtual thing ain't it. Listen, right? If we think about it, what happens is this is what everyone talks about. So I saw 100, Charles. Is we look at this whole time that we're in right now and we're stressed out. We got our hands on our heads. We got Post-its where I don't even know what the name of my computer is because it's all covered. Some of us were like, you know what? If I do another virtual event again, I am just going to bury my head in my laptop, right? And then this other young lady is like literally like, oh my gosh, I can't deal, and like saying in the middle of a prayer and hoping that something changes, right? So in this idea of these pictures, right, we think about the stress that we're feeling right now. And I think that the reality is that how can we possibly do our best work if we're this overwhelmed? And so self-care becomes something that's super important for us to go and do, right? Like we need to go and take care of ourselves, but how do we actually go ahead and do that? And the reality for many of us who is listening to me right now, the reality is that if I was to ask you this question, and I just want to see in the chat, you let me know the answer. Who do you think has the most stressful life right now in the United States? Like who has the most stressful job or life? Put it in the chat. Let me just see, like I see Arlene, president, doctors, college students, the president, Biden, the vice president, excluded workers. Oh my gosh, the chat is flooding, mothers, Cuomo, stock market. You guys are making me laugh. This is crazy. Now, this is good, right? Impoverished and homeless people, everyone to an extent, right? So we have a lot of the chats and it's flooding, everyone, right? And the reality, and I would argue, and someone referenced this in the 6 dimensions of self-care, right? I would argue that all of you are probably the ones who have the most stressful job. And here's why. Hear me out. You're a student for many of you, a parent, an employee, and then I'm sure there's about 3 or 4 other hats that we just don't have time to go and discuss right now. Some of us said the president, and I would say, yeah, the president has high stakes, but high stress might not be the case because unlike the president, none of us have 50 senators to go and help do the work. None of us have a cabinet of people to help us do the work, right? When you got to go to school, go to work and raise your child, you can't go and tell senator down the block to go ahead and help you. College students are the ones who are sitting here trying to navigate all these different worlds and trying to make it make sense. And so I get the overwhelm, but we're going to talk about how do we navigate self-care through self-awareness. And so this whole idea of self-ish, let me get a 1 in the chat. If you guys have ever watched the show Black-ish or have ever heard of it, put a 1 in the chat. I see ones. 1, right? 3,
Hi, Jason.
1, right? And this whole idea of Black-ish is like it's a Black family growing up in a rich place. Hello.
Hi. Geo, yes, thank you. This is one of the interpreters. I'm actually trying to message the host or the co-host. My video is actually locked and I need to switch out with the other interpreter, as well as the consumer that is utilizing our services. She's trying to pin us and she's not able to. Our videos are locked somehow. Thank you very much.
Yes, just
go ahead.
I don't know who can handle that behind the scenes. Somebody hopefully can take care of that. I don't know how to do that part, but thank you for bringing that up so that we can make sure that's addressed. Yeah, so the idea of Black-ish, right, is this whole Black family, and they talk about all things Black. And so as I thought about this presentation, I wanted to talk about all things self. So that's why we called it self-ish. And I believe that there's so many different things that if we don't address it, we can never figure out how do we get our self-care to the next level. And so here's what it starts off with. My mentor once told me, Geo, do you know what is the one disease that every single person has? And I'm like, what are you talking about, the number one disease? He said, there's one disease that every single person will have in their time, in their life. And so I was like, chicken pox. And he was like, nah, that ain't it. I'm like, everybody get chicken pox at least once. But he's like, yeah, but it goes away, right? He said the number one thing that everyone will eventually have a bout with is low self-esteem. Lamar says stress, which we definitely get stressed too, right? But low self-esteem, he said, was the most dangerous disease that one can have. And so I was like, what do you mean? Like, why is that the case? And he told me the reason why is because it's the one disease that infiltrates through every other part of our being. Someone with low self-esteem is a person who will see everything else start to fall apart if they don't have that feeling of positivity about themselves. And let me know if this has ever been something. Put a 2 in the chat if this has ever happened to you, where maybe you've seen someone, maybe a pretty lady or a handsome young man, and you may have complimented the person, and the person went and said, hey, you're so beautiful. And they're like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm ugly. Or you're so handsome. And it's like, no, I'm not. You're so smart, Lillian. And you're like, I'm not really that smart. Or Catherine, I'm like, hey, Catherine, like you're such a people person. And you're like, no, everybody hates me, right? And we think about this idea and what happens when somebody, I see the definitely's and I see the 2s coming in the chat. We have this low self-esteem. And what happens when we have low self-esteem is that we can't even see what positivity is out there. We always see it as the glass is half empty and never see it as a glass half full. And so it makes it a lot harder. And I see, what about humility? And I think humility is definitely important, but I think sometimes it's such a slippery slope, because is it humility or is it a low sense of confidence? And so I think, yeah, you don't want to go and brag. I'm not trying to go and say, hey, let's be narcissists and say, hey, you're so beautiful. I know, like, come on, like everyone should look like me, right? Like, we're not saying that, but at the same time, you don't want to diminish what you actually are. And so this whole idea of self-esteem, when it's low, it starts to bleed into other areas of our lives. So here's what happens. Someone with low self-esteem will eventually start having self-doubt. Someone who doesn't believe they are supposed to get anything, they're not good enough, when an opportunity presents itself, immediately self-doubt starts to creep in. So what does that look like for us as students? Someone, maybe Jason comes and says, hey, there's an amazing scholarship opportunity for you. You know what, Afna, Regina, there's a great scholarship opportunity for you. And now you may have low self-esteem. And so you go and say, oh, that's a great scholarship, but I doubt that I would get it. Like, I know, like maybe Tiana can get it, but me, Regina, maybe I can't get it. Or me, Andre, I don't think I can get it. And so now we start to self-doubt, and the opportunities that we once prayed for are now stuff that we're literally pushing away because we just don't think we can get it. You see, the person who has low self-esteem doesn't see how they could possibly get it. So whenever an opportunity comes, they doubt that that opportunity is for them. And so as we start to think, and Stefan says, happens to me all the time, right? Like, you start sitting there and it's like, oh my gosh, like what if you started to believe that you deserved it, that you earned it, that you're being positioned for it? Maybe then we could start to receive the opportunities. Many of us are hoping for an opportunity when the opportunity is right before us, but when we doubt it, we don't see it as one. And so what happens because of that is we then go to the next thing. We start to self-sabotage. We start to take the opportunities and we throw them away. We keep saying, I don't think I can get it. I see Regina. And when I think that I can get it, but all people around me think I can't get it, right? Like, and there's people like that. There's people who have doubts, and there's going to be doubters. That's going to happen, right? And it's something to do with them. But when we start to see these opportunities of like, okay, I got low self-esteem, so I don't think that of the world of me, I don't think I'm special or anything, then I start doubting the opportunities. What happens is whenever something comes, you just reject it. It's almost as if you start to build this big wall and you're like, hey, I want to give you an opportunity, Sybel, and you're like, no, it's not for me. And you start throwing these opportunities away, and you start to take the thing that you want and you like start to mess it up. You start to tear it down. And so that becomes self-sabotaging. So now over time, what happens is you start to question your self-worth. If I was worth anything, then I would have opportunities. I would be able to land them. I would be confident. I would feel good. People would feel good about me as well. And all these good things would happen for me. And so what happens is we start to question our self-worth. We're like, oh, I'm not worthy of this. Like, no, it wouldn't even matter. And I hope that this is not, I don't know if you guys could relate to this, but I've had moments where I was like, hey, you know what? Whether I'm alive or whether I'm not, nobody will notice the difference. No one will know that I'm gone. No one will know that I'm here. And that's a person who's got that low self-worth that is starting to question these things. And I just want to encourage you that by the end of this presentation, we're going to go and tear that stuff upside down so that you could go ahead and start loving you. Some of you, you're going to be a little weird. You're going to start writing yourself some love letters and put it on the side. You're going to be like, yo, you know what? You're like, dear Geo, you're such a handsome fellow. I know you just turned 37, but you look 21, man, you're doing good. Like, you're going to start writing some stuff to yourself where you're going to be like, yo, man, I'm acting strange, right? But it's not like you're acting strange, it's that you're giving yourself the love that you need, right? So it's going to change the game. I promise you. I see somebody laughing, right? So this whole idea of if I got low self-esteem, high self-doubt, I self-sabotage, I don't have good self-worth, what ends up happening is you start to have self-hate. What you start to do is you start to hate yourself. You don't like you. You look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, ah, shucks. And Kenyatta said, you look good, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it. You start to have this self-hate. And this self-hate, what happens is you start to think everyone else is amazing and you're not. And sometimes, if we're going to be honest, what happens when we have self-hate is that because we are full of it, we can never possibly pass on anything but hate. Let me say that again. When we're full of self-hate, we end up passing on that to others. I always think about these people who like to put people down. And I always ask the question, if someone is pulling you down, and I want to see in the chat, if someone is pulling you down, can anybody take a wild guess? Where is that person if they're pulling you down? Lamar says down. Right? Like down already. I see it in the chat. Everybody's going down. Beneath you, Hamilton says, yes, Hamilton, you got it, right? That person who's pulling you down is already below you. And so what happens is when we start to hate ourselves, the only way for us to feel okay is to pull someone down with us. It's like that crabs in a barrel mentality. And so I want to just kind of shift it and talk about how do we flip this upside down? But here's the thing. We talked about self-esteem. We talked about self-doubt, we talked about self-sabotage, we talked about self-worth, and we talked about self-hate. And what is the common denominator with all these terms? Self. Self is the common denominator. And so this is why it's so important that when I heard that they were going to do this for the conference, I said, this is so amazing because oftentimes we don't realize that bad leadership is often a leader who is not fully aware of themselves and understanding how to optimize themselves so that they can be of great service to those that they're called to serve. And so if we start to address this at its core, it changes the game. So here's what it looked like from a practical level. If your self-esteem, your self-worth, everything is low, here's what it looks like. Let's say there was you had 1 million followers on social media and all of them were singing your praises and you are the why in blue. Right? We've got some CUNY blue on here, right? So you are the why. And let's say you took 1 million times why, but your self-worth and the feeling about you was 0. 1 million times 0 equals what for the mathematicians in the room, right? Like what is 1 million times 0? I see it flooding in the chat, right? It's 0. No matter what the outside says about you, if they're saying all the positive things, if you feel like you're worth nothing, what ends up happening is the value that you will walk away with about yourself is nothing at all. But I want to encourage you guys, for those who might say, Geo, I'm not a master level of self-esteem. I still doubt myself sometimes. I want to encourage you that 1 million times 0.000001 is actually a number. And I want to encourage you that if you just have an ounce of like belief in yourself, just an ounce, I'm looking for like a little pebble, that is enough to go and help you get started towards your journey of being the best version of you. Geo's about to be hired at TED Talk. That's hilarious, right? This is going to be where it changes the game for you guys. So we're going to talk about self-love. We're going to talk about self-care. How do we do that? And one of the things that I've realized with this whole idea of self-love and self-care is that it looks different for everyone. We have these protocols. When I looked on Google, it said that there were like 3 million search results for like self-care. And I was like, whoa, like a lot of people really on this vibe. And the pandemic, because we've had to hang out with ourselves so much and had to socially distance and not be around people, we've ended up in a place where we are stuck with ourselves. And I just want to encourage you that when you start to learn more about you, the more you learn about something, the more your level of love and care for it increases. And so with this presentation, as we become more aware, what's going to happen is your self-care and your self-love. Here's what's going to happen. When we increase our level of love, and our self-care will change as well. When our self-love goes up, our self-care goes up as well. I got a brand new car in November. I love this car. I call it, what I call the cars? Snow White or something. It's a white car, right? And so I love the car, but because I love it, that's the reason why I make sure I take it to the car wash every other week. It's the reason why I tell the people jokingly, but I'm half serious, take off your shoes when you get in the car. Don't judge me, people. I'm a little crazy. Like I want the car clean like the way I got it the first time. But because I love it so much, my level of care for it is on another level. I want to encourage you that, guys, it's okay to love yourself. Some of us will say, but Geo, isn't that selfish of me to care for myself? Isn't it selfish of me to love myself? And it's like, no, we're missing the boat, because here's the thing about taking care of you. Taking care of you doesn't mean that you're saying, hey, Geo is first. No, it's not me saying, hey, me first. What I'm actually saying is me too. I should be loved as well. I should be cared for as well. I'm not saying, hey, Tiana, you don't deserve no love. I'm not saying, Stefan, you don't deserve any care. I'm saying I deserve it too. And too many times we are always about, let me give it to others. But I'm like, how can you give something that you don't actually have? You can't. And so I want you to get filled up. We're going to take it to another level. We're going to fill ourselves up. And the way we go ahead and do that is by increasing our level of self-awareness. It's for us to get to a place where we start to love ourselves on another level. Here's what that looks like, because I don't know about you, but I've been in places where I have found myself to be more aware about others, their likes, their interests, their hates, their dislikes, their favorites, more so than my own. For those of you who may know me from the presentations I've done in the past, I'm a huge fan of Kevin Hart, the comedian. If someone was to go and ask me, Geo, what is Kevin Hart's favorite designer that he likes to wear? I would say he loves to wear Paul Smith suits because he's only 5'4". And so he wants these suits to fit him a certain way. And Paul Smith makes suits for small people, like shorter people like Kevin Hart. You say, Geo, what type of cologne does Kevin Hart like? He likes Le Labo. It's a French company, but he likes the way it makes him smell. You're like, Geo, how do you know that? I said, because I went on his picture and I zoomed in, don't judge me, and I saw the package in the background. You might say, Geo, what is his favorite car? What's the last car he drove? The Ferrari 488. You're like, Geo, wow, that's so amazing that you know that about him. But then you would ask me, Geo, what's your favorite color? And I'd be like, shucks, like what day is today? Because sometimes I like black, sometimes I like red. Sometimes I like blue, you know, like I don't know. It depends on the day. Geo, what's your favorite song? Oh my gosh, like I don't know. I have no idea. And what happens is we learn so much about others and we don't learn about ourselves. And here's the thing, I want you to walk away with this. If you don't remember anything else from this presentation, I don't want you to get a degree in a subject matter and neglect the fact that you are the subject that matters. I'm going to say this again. I don't want you to get a degree in a subject matter and dismiss the fact that you are a subject that matters. I want you to realize that I want you to go ahead and get a degree in University. I want Tiana to get a doctorate in Tiana University. I want Christina to go and get a doctorate in Christina University. I want Lamaya to go and get a doctorate in Lamaya University. It's important that we know about ourselves because here's the common denominator. That's the only person that you have to take everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, you go. And so we have to know ourselves in a deeper level. And how do we do that, Geo? Like, all right, you got me. I'm enrolling right now into University. I'm going to take my classes. I'm going to do all this stuff, Geo. But where do I actually go ahead and start, right? Here's where you start. You start with a 4-word question. Now, some people say, well, the longer the words or the longer something is, the more important it is. No, it's not. I'll prove it to you. When someone says, I love you, that's 3 words, but that can change somebody's day. When someone goes and says, I see you, that's 3 words. It could change your day. I hear you. I feel you. That's 3 words, and it changes the game. This 4-word question, I am asking you, I am begging you, you want to give me a birthday gift? Ask yourself this question every single day. This 4-word question will change the game for you. And it's this right here. What do I need? Every single morning, start asking yourself, what do I need? The very question says that you're valuable. Why would you even care to ask what someone needs if that in person doesn't matter? So now if I start my day with what do I need, everything starts to change. Some of us don't realize maybe you need breakfast or you're going to be a bad person to somebody else. For some of you, maybe the reality is that, hey, Geo, I'm not a human being until I have me a cup of coffee. If you meet me before I go to Starbucks, I promise you, you ain't going to like the person you met. Right? Like for some of us, we think about this idea of what is it that I need? Some of us right now watching me and they're like, Geo, I'm hangry. I'm hungry. And because I'm hungry, I'm angry, right? Like some of us are like in this point, but I want you to understand the power of this 4-word question, because when you know what it is that you need, you can now position yourself to be at your best, to do your best. So if you're like, yo, I got a big exam, I got a big job interview, you need to know, what do you need? Do you need to hear a particular song before you go into the job interview? Do you need your clothes to be ironed? Then go put it at the dry cleaners, right? What do you need? For me, I was super tired. I need me an energy drink to make sure that I could come and be at 120% for this amazing presentation that we're doing together. What do you need? Start asking yourself that question, because I promise you, it will change the game for you. I see here, and let me just see in the chat, for example, if I think, what do I need? The first thing that I think is I need to do this homework or go to work, which is what I need to achieve my goals with. How do we differentiate it? I want to say this, Jalen, and it's a great question. I want you to understand that if you're not at your best, what kind of homework will you do? If you're not at your best and you're not taken care of, how good could you be as a worker? So the reality is that I want you to go and understand, again, it's not that you're being selfish, putting yourself first. What you're saying is, I can't go and do my best unless I am okay. And if I'm okay, I'm gonna make sure you okay too. But if I'm not, I can't help you the way you would like me. We all want someone to do their best, but what do you need in order to make that happen is the key question. And so we need to go and understand this question and understand it, and don't feel guilty asking it. Do not, like, what do you need? You need sleep. You need, like, and be open with it, because by asking this question, we flip the scale of low self-esteem, low self-worth. Oh, I don't matter. No, a person who asks this question definitely matters. You wouldn't ask it if it wasn't the case. And here's why I'm really adamant about this question, because the reality is that our unchecked needs leads to unwanted wants. Let me say, I got to say it again for the people who did not hear it. The unchecked needs leads to unwanted wants. You like, Geo, what do you mean? Here's what I mean by that. My need is I need breakfast in the morning. If that goes unchecked, it leads to me having a buffet for lunch. And you're like, Geo, whoa, my wife looks at me and she starts judging me when she's like, did you really just eat that whole pizza by yourself? Like, did you and I'm like eating it. I didn't have breakfast. So I'm eating 2 slices, 3 slices. At the 4th slice, I can feel her looking at me and judging me, but I have unchecked my needs. So it's too late. I'm going for the 8 slices. And then what happens is I never actually wanted the 8 slices. What happened was, the reality is I didn't take care of the needs initially. And because of that, now I am ingrained in some unwanted wants. Many of us, that's what happens. You have a need for belonging, a need for love, a need for like feeling significant. And what happens is when you get that unchecked, you go ahead and buy that sneaker that you couldn't afford, and you buy it on the credit card, and then you go ahead and have interest. And now you bought the Yeezys for $300 on your credit card. But by the time you finish paying it off 17 years from now, you done bought the Yeezys for $1,000, right? Right? To the person who taught financial literacy. Like, we end up going and spending or doing things that are unhealthy because we've ignored the question of what do I need? And so this idea of the Maslow hierarchy of needs, if you look at this image here, you'll see at the top that it says self-actualization. This is what I'm talking about, self-ish. We can never get to self-actualization, which is your best life, like living my best life, like literally that stage. We can't get there if our needs are not met. If you are like, I'm hangry, I haven't slept in 48 hours. Let me tell you what happens when you don't sleep for 48 hours. It is almost the equivalent of someone who was drunk. So now I'm not safe on the road, and neither is anybody else. What belonging am I going to have when I get in the hospital because I got into a car accident? How good are you going to feel about yourself that you got in an accident and you messed up somebody else's car? You don't got no good self-esteem for that. And so now your self-actualization goes completely down because I didn't take care of my needs. You have to take care of your needs. If you don't, I hope that me sweating like bullets right now, I'm doing it because I need you to believe without a shot of a doubt that you matter. I need you to believe that even in the middle of the pandemic, even in the middle of, I gotta be on Zoom for like 4 hours a day and stuff, I need you to still make time for you. Because if you're not at your best, I am scared for what kind of leader you will be. And with us being at an emerging leaders conference, the reason why I love talking to leaders is because leaders set the temperature in the room that we ultimately all have to follow. And so if a leader is not okay, what kind of stuff is that leader sharing to its followers? Leadership contaminates. The question I want to know is like, are you like contaminating people with goodness, positivity, hopefulness, motivation, inspiration, practical strategies and tools, believing in themselves? Or are you so low that you're now giving people something negative and now that is being reciprocated, that is being multiplied? So it's important that you take care of you because the reality is you are the why that the million is being multiplied to. And so if I figure out how to take care of you, then every other follower that is not under you, but with you will be able to benefit out of the glow, right? If you get in the sun, you're going to get you a suntan. So if you good and you shining bright like a diamond, everyone else is going to be out of their darkness because of your light. But we can't get there if we don't take care of us. So here's the thing I want you to understand. When we think about this whole idea of self, and real quick before, let me just take a quick sip because I need it, right? I just want to know from a scale of 1 to 10, I love this so far, right? I love this, right? I want us to say on a scale of 1 to 10, how are we feeling right now? I know some of us may have been like, I saw the chat earlier and stuff, and whoever said, you may have been feeling low in the beginning. I'm seeing 10s and 9s on a scale of 1 to 10. How are you feeling right now? I want you to say, and I want you to be full of you. I want Lamaya, I want Sybil, you're like, oh, I'm feeling myself, and not feeling myself in the way of like everyone else is whack. I'm feeling myself just as much as everybody else. I'm a 10. We are 10s. We all 10s. You are the sum of the people around you, but you got to make sure that you are 10 too, because 10 attract 10s. 5 attracts 5s. 1s attract 1s. So if you're like, yo, why am I around a bunch of 1s? Well, if you're around a bunch of 1s, guess what your number is? 1, right? So we need to take this thing to another level so that we can make sure that we are at a place where we can go. Tiana said, I'm in a 9. I'd be at a 10 right after this when I eat, right? So we want to understand that. Please be full, be excited because this is going to go to another level. So how do we get there, Geo? Another self is self-improvement. Some of us might look at it and say, Geo, I'm not where I want to be yet. And I want to encourage you, that's okay. You do not have to be at the top yet. That's not what we're about. We're about self-improvement. One of my mentors told me this, Geo, do you know what's the biggest room in the world? I said, the biggest room in the world? No. She said, the biggest room in the world is the room of improvement. I said, what the heck? I took out my Post-it. I wrote it down. I said, you better tell me that. She's like, what is it? Like the biggest room is improvement. So you don't even got to worry about it. Guys, understand this. You do not have to be great to start your leadership journey. You just gotta be, you don't have to be great to start it. but you do have to start the journey in order to be great. So this whole idea of, oh man, Geo, when I know how to speak English a lot better, I'll go and participate and join leadership. No, I need you to go and start joining it right now and grow in your leadership. If you got only 3 English words, you say them 3 English words with pride, and you go and say, today is 3 words. Next week, I'm gonna tell you 6 words. The week after that, I'm gonna tell you 12. You talk to me 3 months from now, I'm gonna give you a whole speech by the time I'm done. Like, I want you to understand that we have the opportunity to grow. But the way for us to go and get self-improvement is to go and take self-inventory, to look at ourselves and say, what do I like about myself? What areas of my life where I'm a little bit struggling right now? What are the things that I can get better at? This is what's rooted in curiosity. As you start to ask questions to yourself, everything changes. Everything changes. Marie, I see you say hello, 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 right? So curiosity is big. Ask questions of yourself. Ask questions. So here's one real quick. I want to go and have you guys participate in something. I have a series of questions that's listed right here. And what I would like for you to do is I want you to take about 30 seconds to identify a question that you would like to answer. And I'm going to ask some couple of brave souls to go ahead and tell me what it is that you picked as your question and what is your answer. Now, before we go, I want you to understand the reason why we're asking these questions is because we've never asked ourselves anything about ourselves typically. We always ask everybody else about themselves, right? That's why when I was in the whole, the inner workings of self-love, I was struggling because I was like, yo, she's asking me a question about me. I was fine answering the question about the traits about somebody else. But when it was like, why do you like that trait? I said, dang, you just said, why do I like it? Oh my gosh, I got to look at me. And so these questions is an opportunity for you to go and look at yourself and ask yourself a question, and then we'll dive into it. So take about 30 seconds, identify which question you would like to answer, and then have the answer. And then we'll go ahead and I'm going to ask you guys to bravely just unmute yourself and share which was your question and what is the answer. So we got about like another 20 seconds or so. Cool. All right, I see a hand raised. That's dope. All right, cool. So Tiana, I saw your hand raised. If you could unmute yourself, tell me what is the question that you had and what is the answer?
Okay, so I chose, what do you think you could never ever give up? And for me, I believe that I could never ever give up. Just taking action, I could never just be dormant and just sit down and not do anything. So for me, it would be, I would never give up my passion for wanting to take action and advocate and do something.
So this is super cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Here's the cool thing about what Tiana said. When she took that question, there's so much in the question. This is why it's so important to ask them. When she went and said, hey, you know what? I know I can never not take action. Here's one of the things that now Tiana knows. Anytime Tiana is not taking action, it's immediately a red flag, something's off, right? She knows that because it's like, oh snap, I know that I will never give up taking action. So if she finds herself slipping into no action mode, she knows, I need to talk to somebody. I need to go and figure this out because this ain't Tiana right now. Like this ain't what we do here. Because of the question, she now has an increased level of awareness to always be able to make sure she knows what is Tiana and who is Tiana at her best. At her best, Tiana's taking action. And so anytime she's not doing that, she knows, oops, I'm slipping. And now she can address it. Many of the things that we need when it goes unaddressed, we end up with a life that we don't actually want to live. Right? But when you ask these questions, it turns things around. So thank you, Tiana, for sharing that. Who else wanted to go? Just unmute yourself and tell me, what is your question and the answer?
Hey, I'm here. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you. What my question was, and I think this is a very interesting list. What do you think happens when you die? And first thought of mine is, the rigor mortis process. And then after, I just thought about, your legacy, what you're leaving. FDR said, you know, your children are the legacies that you leave in the world. And it's like you leave all of the knowledge, you impart advancement in civilization, and you play a big role and a big factor in just how we end up figuring out different life questions, such as what is the meaning of life, or how do you end up being ultimately happy, or how do you self-actualize, as you mentioned. And I thought you mentioned very, you know, greatly in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I'll just end with this, that what do I think happens when I die? And I think that I leave something important that can be utilized. I want to leave a tool that can be used as for advancement. That's what happens, and that's what I think happens when I die.
Jeez, can we get a virtual round of applause and some snaps for Kenyatta? Like that was so dope. It's like, I want to leave. This is why I know we got some good leaders, because he like, when I leave, I want someone to still be able to eat something from what I was cooking, right? Like I love that stuff, right? It's so amazing. And it also helps him have a guide, because now he knows, how do I make my decisions? I now make my decisions based on, is it something that's temporary and it's going to fade, or is it something that's going to outlive me? And so now this is the thing that now, with that level of clarity, it's able to go and help Kenyatta know, what career should I pursue? What type of degree should I be pursuing? What type of environments and relationships and networking do I need to do to go and ensure that I'm leaving a legacy? Well, since you want to leave a legacy, Kenyatta, you need to be able to go and hang out with those who are laying down the frameworks and groundwork to leave legacies as well. Now that you know that, you have a clue on how to navigate your own journey. Let me take one more person to go and unmute themselves. So good. That was a good question.
Yeah. First of all, let me say happy birthday to you, Gio.
Thank you, Abdul.
Yeah. The question I want to talk about is, say, how do you feel when faced with change?
Yep.
So my response to that is that change is the only constant thing in life. We know changes, time changes, everything changes, even the life we're living changes, the situation, everything changes. So how I feel when I face change in life, I just believe, yes, it's a change is constant. I have to adapt to the change, to the system, how it changes, whichever way it changes, to adapt to fit in the system, to the change.
Mm-hmm. No, and I'm glad you shared that, right? Like, it's like, here's the crazy thing. Not crazy thing. Here's the interesting thing, I should say. When we see this question of how do I feel, or how do you feel when it comes to change? And I love the fact you shared, hey, change is constant. If change is constant, then I need to be aware of what is my current relationship as it comes to change. Do you hate it? Well, it's constant. So if you hate change, you're going to have to figure out a plan that's consistent enough to allow you to be able to go and deal with something that is not going away. But when you know this is why it's important for you to look at these questions, and I'll share this with you guys somewhere, or we'll figure out how to get this series of questions for you. These are just things that I normally go through on a day-to-day basis, and I don't answer all of them because I ain't trying to overwhelm myself. I like to take a question and sit in the question so that I could really go and start to be with me, understand me, so that I can take me to another level. And so when you understand these questions, how would your best friend describe you? Do you consider yourself to have a happy childhood? When did you last feel disappointed? These are all questions that will allow us to get clues so that we can go and start making more educated guesses with whatever it is that we're experiencing in life. And hey, the times we're living in right now, isn't it sometimes frustrating if we're honest? It's frustrating because the one time you finally figure out what you're going to do, something else changes, right? You're like, you know what? I figured it out. I bought this specific mask because they said this, and then it changes. And they're like, no, you need to get the KN95 mask. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I thought this was the mask. I thought I figured this thing out, and all of a sudden something else changes. Doreen was next to she had her hand raised for a while. Doreen, I saw that you had your hand raised. I don't want you to feel like we did not see you. Thank you, Tiana, for sending that to me. Doreen, can you unmute yourself? I want to hear what you had to say. I saw your hand was up for a while.
Hi, thanks. Hi, everybody. I did, let's see, what was it? Oh, let me look. Sorry. What do you engage in or activities to escape your reality? And I know I do a lot of movies or TV shows, series where you can get caught up on all of them that run forever. So I know I escape in a lot of that. Sometimes because I just need that break, and more times because I don't want to do the other part, like that whole list of homework and at the computers just drive me crazy. I need paper, so I got to rewrite stuff over. So yeah, I tend to just go into the movies. I can go to movies all day, all night, and sleep. I also can just sleep. When I get really down or depressed, I can just sleep.
And thank you so much for sharing that, Doreen. And I'm with you, right? I could get me on a Netflix series. That's why I'm so the minute I see the word series, I'm like, uh-oh, here we go. Shucks, I'm about to be on here for 8 hours. Like, because once I get one, and then you start to not see what's happening. And so it's this reality of like, I need it on paper sometimes. The computer screen becomes overwhelming. Tiana says, yeah, it's overwhelming to be on the computer. And I think, again, you knowing where you escape, sometimes we need to take inventory to see, am I escaping for too long? Because if I'm escaping for too long, then maybe the life that I'm living needs to be recreated in some way. So that it's nothing wrong with watching Netflix. There's nothing wrong with watching movies. It becomes an issue when I'm watching 24 hours of movies, like I'm a movie critic writing for Netflix or something, right? Like you're like, do you work for the movie industry? No, I don't. I just like me movies so much because the life that I have doesn't feel like a movie that I want to watch. And if that's the case, then we need to start taking inventory, self-inventory, to be like, why don't I like the life that I have? What would make it different? And then because I now have a heightened level of awareness, I can now start to work towards that because I do know, versus let me keep on watching so that I don't know. And if I don't know, like burying your head in the sand, hoping that when you pick your head back up, it will change. The reality is that it doesn't. And so knowing where you escape is important to know that too, because you now know how to de-stress, right? So you know, like, hey man, this Zoom thing is killing me and I got to go and write this paper. Well, if you know that, you might need a little 30-minute of a TV show real quick, a little thing to kind of divert yourself from that and then get back to what you need to do again. So I'm glad that you were able to go ahead and do that. Now, just for the sake of time, because I know we have about 9 minutes and I want to make sure that you don't miss the next breakout session, I want to share with you guys this idea of what do we do with these questions, right? What do we do when it comes to self-care? And it's the 3 E's that I want to share with you. Everything that you do is some form of practice. It doesn't mean it will work for you, but it's worth experimenting with. So if someone says, hey, Doreen, you know, you watch a lot of movies. Did you ever try meditation? I know my friend Lila, she's going to be doing a breakout session after this on meditation. Have you ever tried meditation? You might go and say, oh, no, I haven't. Well, go ahead and experiment with it to see, because the reality is that we don't necessarily know if it works for us or not. And it may work for someone else, but it may not work for you. And it's important for you to experiment to be able to know, oh, meditation don't work for me. Like my head, I got 500 ideas that start coming in. I don't really feel like I'm relaxed. I feel like it's worse. But some people, they're like, that quiet stillness really helps me to connect with myself. And so you got to figure out what is that for you. And you can only do that by examining something. So any type of recommendations that people send to you, even what I'm saying, don't just take what I'm saying and say, hey, that's the self-care commandments, whatever Geo says. No. Take what I said, experiment with it, because you will get out of it is a discovery of whether it works for you or not. I want you to get a customized self-care routine, a customized self-love routine that works for you. So maybe for you, you don't need candles. You don't need a diffuser with essential oils and stuff. Maybe it's something else for you. You can go ahead and get that through experimenting. And here's what happened. When I experiment, I get an experience, good or bad, but that experience provides me with feedback that I can now use to be able to go and make a next educated guess on what's best for me. And then what happens is this, you examine it. You do the experiments, you examine, oh, this worked, that didn't work. All right, I'm gonna throw that away. This one, I really did like it. I'm gonna keep this, right? And so you change it. For some of you, you might need classical music to go and do your writing of your papers, doing your homework assignments. For some of you, you need to go and listen to some rap music or something. And you're like, Geo, how is that possible? For me, I'm gonna be honest, Sometimes listening to Eminem, it actually calms me, even though he sounds angry when he's rapping. Like, I'm like, yo, he sounds angry, he sounds upset. And I'm like, but it's so calming for me for some reason. That's me doing my experiment, me going through an experience and me examining what works for me. And it may not be for you, but you need to go and do that. So engage with what works, keep it, and show the exit sign to whatever does not work. Right? So that's what you want to do. So for example, you have Geo, I'm feeling stressed. Good. Experiment. Go do meditation. What happened when you did meditation? Geo, I felt calm. Good. Keep it. Geo, I didn't feel like it worked. Good. Find something else. Like, it's not like you don't have to do one thing. There's not one way to self-care. There's not one way to self-love, right? But you now having this level of self-awareness, you can know how to navigate it, right? You might say, hey, you feel stressed out, go and work out. Some people feel like, yo, when I go work out, I feel more tired. How is this going to help me get energized? And there's some other people who's like, yo, when I work out, I just feel like I could go and tackle the day and I can do whatever I want. Which one works for you? It's different for different people. And so I just want to just get some ideas in the chat. What are some ways you handle stress? That way, all of us can get some ideas on what things we can possibly experiment with, what things we could ultimately experience, which will ultimately give us a chance to examine something. So just put in the chat. I'm going to read them off as fast as I can. Catherine says writing. Doreen says, I go for a walk. Doreen, I ain't gonna lie to you. When I was walking without my mask, I felt special. I felt different. My thoughts started to come slow. And I was like, wow, I feel like I'm in like the Matrix or something right now. Like I'm starting to see everything. I see Jody has something in common with you. She goes for long walks. I see you taking pictures, short walks. I would play with my sister, instruments and music, swimming, drawing, says Andre, listening to music, says Khalifa, cleaning, traveling, walking essentially next to the sea. Ooh, I love that. Call Stefan and vent with him. I love that. I also like journaling, sleep. These, Curtis says working out and music. Abin says playing sports. Look at all these different suggestions. And here's the thing. I asked you to share this because I wanted you all to see that self-care looks different for all of us. Not everyone said the same thing. Some said being alone. Jalen, I ain't mad at you. I know what that's like. Sometimes I leave the house so my wife can get some self-care. Like sometimes she needs to be by herself, right? I'm like, why don't you like being around me? I need to take care of me. If I ain't good, I can't do nothing for you. I'm out and I go outside, right? So I see hiking in the mountains. Brunel says working with them within my community. That's super good. Abin says standing up against injustice makes it. This is something that you need. This is something that makes you feel connected, alive. And I just want to encourage you guys with this. As leaders, we are called to light other people up. We're called to light other people up. And I mean lighting other people up. Like if their candle doesn't have any fire, we're called to light their fire. But here's the one thing I realized. And there's this quote that says, you will never lose your fire lighting up another candle. You'll never lose your flame lighting up another candle. And this is very important for leadership. However, what is missed with that quote is it's assuming that your candle is already lit. If your candle is not already lit, and let me just stop sharing my screen real quick. I want to see your faces and everything. Like what happens is the minute we start thinking, oh, well, I'm going to just light your candle up. How can I possibly light my candle, light your candle up if I'm not lit? And so I want you to go and understand, start loving you, love you, care for you so that you can go and give the best love and the best care you possibly can as leaders. And so at this point, I know we got about 2-3 minutes left. I would love to take any feedback, questions that you guys may have about self-care. I know we got so many people, so if you could use the chat so that we're not like all talking over each other, I can go ahead and read those as we land this plane. But I just want to thank so much you guys for being on here and allowing me to share my birthday with you and do this presentation because I really believe that I really want to care for you. We have this challenge of, you know, the pandemic has really brought to light how important our mental health is. And I believe a lot of the mental health issues that is happening or that has been coming to the forefront now is because a lot of our unchecked needs happened. And because we never checked in with ourselves, it materialized into something a lot bigger and something that's a lot harder to take ownership of or to be able to control. So I'm looking here. Thank you, Geo. You are truly the GOAT. Oh, thank you so much. I hope you're not just saying that because it's my birthday. Valerie says, excellent presentation. I wrote a lot of notes down. Stefan says, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation. I learned a lot about how to be a better individual, says Inti. And Inti, you got some good dance moves. I saw you doing a good job. Abin says, amazing presentation. This was lit. Yeah, basically. What did you guys learn about you? Let me just see that in the chat real quick. What did you learn about yourself? I know we didn't have too much time, and I'm hoping that this would whet your appetite to be able to go and care about you on another level. What did you learn about yourself, or are you looking to explore about you? Khalifa says, how can we gain access to your materials? Whatever the process is with the powers that be, I would be more than happy to share with them this. And I know it's also being recorded, which is super cool. I learned that I am way too hard on myself, Stefan says. Ooh, that's so good. That's so good. Brunel says, I learned a lot of things. Abin says, I learned not to be hard on myself. Like, this is a common denominator, right? Like, that's cool. Mayan says, I need to stop more. Wow, that's so powerful. Like, especially when we're in New York City, right? It's like, yo, you gotta go, hustle, hustle. And it's like, yo, slow down. Like, you might be going so fast, you might crash. Like, I need you to go and slow down for a minute, pause, go and pull over on the side and take you a little woosah for a minute, and then be able to go back, right? Jalen says, I learned that I need to set boundaries with others so that I can have time for me. Yes, yes. Shamaya, I learned that I need more self-care days. You better go and schedule that one. Doreen said not to be too hard on myself because my life is not what I want it to be, but I'm getting there. Yes, please do not despise small beginnings, people. You are on a journey, and allow that journey to materialize. I promise you, you'll be happy where you end up as long as you continue to invest in you. Consistency plays an important role in my self-care. I learned that I deserve love. You better go and say that, Tiana. You sure do. Hanan says, I learned that I need to talk to myself. And here's the thing, guys. Talking to yourself ain't crazy. Here's the thing. I heard one of my mentors say this, and I laughed when he said it. He said, Geo, nothing's wrong with talking to yourself as long as you don't go and say, hey, Geo, how you feel? And you go, I'm fine. And then y'all keep having a dialogue with yourself, right? As long as just have a one-way conversation, right? So that people don't say, hey, that sounds like there's 3 people in there. But you want to talk to yourself. And I think what happens is when you talk to yourself, you remind yourself that you are someone. And so I'm loving the fact that you guys are learning these things. And please don't let it stop here. Let this be the beginning of your self-care journey. I want you to be a little bit selfish nowadays and understand that you being selfish doesn't mean that you're saying others are beneath you. You are just saying that I am just as important as you. But hopefully you guys will do that. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the amazing breakout sessions that are to come. And Jason, Christina, the amazing people who put this amazing Emerging Leaders Conference together. Thank you so much for having me. It was truly an honor. I wouldn't have, oh, someone says, what?
Did we lose Geo? Did we lose me or did we lose Geo?
I see you. I don't see Geo.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, but we lost a bunch of people. Okay, Geo's back.
I got into a breakout room. I was like, and they put me in a financial one. Someone is clearly talking about my credit cards.
No, what happened? What?
Yeah,
I think a few people
said
made
we were
it to
kidnapped.
the room got opened, and that's why.
Yeah.
Got you. No, but thank you guys. That was funny. Oh, everybody's coming back. I see everybody here. Thank you guys so much for having me. That was hilarious. Let me see what's in the chat. Hold on. We were kidnapped. Laughing.
I said we were kidnapped.
Geo, the last thing you were talking about was your socials.
Oh, yes, my social. So this is my Instagram. That's the best way to find me. You can find me on there. And then Geo Derice if you are on Facebook for those who are about that life. And on LinkedIn as well. This is the same thing. But I'd love to stay connected with you guys. Tiana knows I'll be stalking her when she be doing IG lives, coming out of her comfort zone. I'll be like, yo, you better go and talk that talk, Tiana. You better go do that. Right. So I want to cheer you on.
Oh, wow, I'm dead.
And Andre get new sneakers. I'm like, yo, where did you get those Yeezys from, man? I could never get them, Andre. Right. So, but I'd love to stay in touch with you guys. So definitely if follow me, I'll follow you back. I'm not one of those social media people who unfollows and needs the ratio to look a certain way or anything like that. We're like, I'm gonna unfollow you because if I'm following too many people, I'm not a celebrity. Like, no, I'm not about that life. So please, let's stay connected. Got you. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, Gio. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's do what we should have done at the beginning. For all of those that can, let's sing happy birthday to Gio.
Oh my goodness. You guys are about to embarrass me.
Everybody. Happy birthday to you.
Happy
birthday
to
you.
That got me taking
Happy
a
But we need to do happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
I got that voice. You need to sing every morning to me so I can wake up. I want to listen to that. Like I heard a little bravado or whatever the term is. I'll be watching The Voice a little bit. I'm learning.
You needed to record it so you could have it every morning.
I was recording. I hope I got a little clip of it so I could play it. My wife might